Hello students, I hope you all are doing really well. So today we are going to start with a very interesting chapter, the story of Kunjamma. So little Kunjamma was born on 16th of September 1916 in the temple town of Madurai in Tamil Nadu. Her mother, Shammugavadayu, was an outstanding veena player. Their tiny home was close to the famous Meenakshi temple. So students, this is the story of a little girl, Kunjamma, and how she becomes a veena player afterwards. The little girl did not have formal lessons in music. She grew up surrounded by the sound of music. She hummed as she heard the notes of Nadaswaram from the nearby Meenakshi temple. She also hummed to the strains of veena her mother played. So her mother used to play a beautiful veena and she used to hum to the music of Shammugavadayu coming from Meenakshi temple. Whenever a religious procession wound through the streets, this Nadaswaram players would stop on the way to play for Shammugavadayu. So the veena players used to stop to play for her mother. My earliest interest in music was focused on the ragas. So now Kunjamma says that her earliest interest used to be in ragas and I would try to reproduce the pipers as well as I could. My mother played and rehearsed all the time. So Kunjamma's mother rehearsed and played all the time, and that's why Kunjamma went on to become such a great veena player afterwards. No formal lessons, but I absorbed a whole wealth by listening and humming with the veena. She also learnt music from her first guru and from listening to the great music who visited her mother. So every time anyone used to visit her mother, they used to play for her, sing for her, and she used to come along and sing with them. And that's how Kunjamma started learning veena. Intrigued by gramophone records, Kunjamma would roll a piece of paper for the speaker and sing into it for hours. So Kunjamma used to take a paper, roll it into a piper, and she used to sing in it like it's a speaker or something. This game became real when she accompanied her mother to Madras and cut her first disc at the age of 10. So even at the age of 10 only, students, she became so famous and she went on to record her first disc at the age of 10 only. The songs were sung in an impossibly high pitch. It was her first stage appearance. This happened even before she had reached her teens. My first stage appearance, when it happened, I felt rather, so what is Kunjamma saying? That how did my first stage appearance felt? Annoyed because I was yanked away from my favorite game, making mud pies. Someone picked me up, dusted my hands and skirt and carried me to the nearby school where my mother was playing in front of about 100 people. So she was picked up while she was playing her favorite game. So Kunjamma is very annoyed. Kunjamma को बहुत गुस्सा आ जाता है जब उसे अपने favorite game से जो कि है mud pies, वो मिट्टी में खेल रही थी, and it was very annoyed for her that someone picked her up, dusted her skirt and hands and took her to perform on this stage in front of everyone. At her request, I sang a couple of songs. I was too young, so on the request of her mother, she sang beautifully. The claps of the audience did not mean anything to me. So now Kunjamma is saying that the claps did not mean anything for me and I just performed because my mother told me to. I was thinking more about returning to the mud because she is just 10 years old, so she wants to go back and play in the mud. The audience was stunned at the sight of a girl of 10 in a silk pavadai and blouse giving a competent solo recital. So the audience, पूरी audience हैरान हो गई देखकर एक छोटी बच्ची को जो कि सिर्फ 10 साल की है इतना beautifully गाते हुए. The child showed no stage fright, which means, what do we mean by stage fright? That she was not feared by anyone. She went on stage and started performing. She looked charming and bright. Her voice had a childish treble. But there was no hesitation. She did not hesitate. She just went on stage and started singing beautifully. She sang with a totally natural joy. This child prodigy was M.S. Subbulakshmi. When she was older, M.S. married T. Sadashivam, a protege of G. Gopalachari. What do we mean by protege here, students? Protege means someone who is accompanying C. Rajagopalachari. Someone who is with Rajagopalachari as an assistant or a helper. Rajaji had wide connections in the journalistic and political world and nurtured her career further. In the 30s, most concert vocalists acted in films. It was surprising that MS, with her lovely voice and a charming personality, joined films. So, MS Subbulakshmi started singing in films or for films. It is believed she wasn't too happy doing this. She wasn't happy singing in films. Why wasn't she happy, students? As she was shy and uncomfortable appearing on screen. So, MS Subbulakshmi was never comfortable to go on screen or to go on screen. The only expression that came naturally to her was music. So, she was not comfortable going on screen and performing, and the only thing she was best at, it was her music. And so it happened that her 4 films are rarely remembered. So her 4 films flopped on the screen. The most memorable of these was Bhakt Meera, which was released in 1945. Its release created a wave of appreciation that gave her an all India status as musician. So after release of this movie, she became famous throughout India. It also marked the end of her film career. It is said that Rajaji advised the couple against any more involvement in films. So, Rajaji told couples, which means MS Subbulakshmi and her husband T. Sadashivam, that they should not go further in films or get involved in films or make films. Perhaps Sadashivam thought that the saintly image MS Subbulakshmi had acquired after films should be preserved. MS gave up the films and turned wholly to music. So, she left film line, students, and she went on to become a great musician afterwards. After MS left films, she met Mahatma Gandhi and sang bhajans for him. Tears welled up in Gandhiji's eyes as she sang, Vaishnav Janato Tere Kahiye Ji, Peer Parai Jane Te. So, as Subbulakshmi used to sing these lines, Gandhiji used to cry because he used to get so emotional. To sing a bhajan is one thing, but to sing it by losing oneself to God is another, Gandhiji observed. What do we mean by this, students? That Gandhiji told this to MS Subbulakshmi, that you sing bhajan like you lose yourself in the presence of God. You sing so well. In 1953, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru presided over a recital by MS Subbulakshmi. Later he said, so what did Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said about MS Subbulakshmi? That he could not address the meeting after she had sung, Who am I, a mere Prime Minister, before a queen of songs. So, MS Subbulakshmi को पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू कह रहे हैं कि she is the queen of songs, वो रानी है सारे सुरों की. MS played a role in the spread of Carnatic music to the West. Hardly anyone knew of the complex Carnatic music system there. Her concert at the Edinburgh Festival and at the United Nations changed this. So, before no one knew about anything about Carnatic music, but since MS Subbulakshmi took up the charge, everyone got to know how beautiful Carnatic music was and they started appreciating her. And she also sang at Edinburgh Festival and at the United Nations. She travelled all over the world, from the prestigious Carnegie Hall, the inaugural concert at the Festival of India in London in 1982, to concert in front of Russian musicians and musicologists in 1988. So now MS Subbulakshmi is performing in front of Russians, and even she went and performed in Carnegie Hall. MS was not different from any other South Indian mother or grandmother. Fame and the adulation of thousands of people left her untouched, which means, students, that she remained as calm as a person as she was before acquiring all these adulations. What do we mean by adulations here, students? It means appreciation, that even after getting so much appreciation from the world, she remained calm and at peace. She was meticulous and neat in her personal life. Even in the delicate lines of column she drew every day. In her appearance speech on 31st August 1974, while receiving the Raman Magsaysay Award, MS Subbulakshmi spoke of Indian music as being oriented solely to the end of divine communion, which means that it is the emergence or the emergence of the God, that she is dedicating her music to the Almighty. She added, if I have done something in this respect, it is entirely due to the grace of Almighty, who has chose my humble self as a tool. तो students, MS सुब्बुलक्ष्मी अपने म्यूजिक को भगवान के ऊपर समर्पित करती हैं और कहती हैं कि it is the grace of the Almighty कि उन्होंने मुझे चुना इस पावन काम के लिए. The pristine quality of the music of MS remained unchanged as she grew older. This was mainly because she took to music as a penance and a means of surrender to God. Far from ordinary, the Nightingale of Carnatic music was a legend. So she was called as the Nightingale of Carnatic music because she used to sing so amazingly. At the end of each recital, she would sound the cymbals with her eyes closed. Like Mirabai, her image as saintly person will live on forever. So this brings us to the end of the chapter, students. I hope you learnt a lot from the life of MS Subbulakshmi. Thank you.